Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you so much for stopping by. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce a couple of our speakers that we have here today, and we are going to be bringing in Alice Cameron as well, getting her set up here in just a moment. So I'd like to go ahead and start by introducing Tony Nec with the Sound Healing Academy. So Tony is an educator and the principal of the Sound Healing Academy, the #1 globally recognized training provider in the field of sound healing. Since 2013, the Sound Healing Academy has taught thousands of students in over 70 countries worldwide, offering both online and in-person certification programs. Alongside his leadership roles, Tony has been an active healer, coach, and wellness trainer, creating a unique healing approach, which is at the core of the Sound Healing Academy's integral sound healing model. Tony also serves as the co-director of the Sound Therapy Shop, along with his wife, Jane. Tony has a passion for sound healing, and he continues to be an active voice in the field of alternative healing and mind-body wellness. We're also excited to be joined by Dr. Svend Davanger. Professor Dr. Svend Davanger is a neuroscientist and a physician with a long-standing interest in brain structure and function. He graduated with an MD from the University of Oslo in 1988 and earned his PhD in neuroscience from the same institution in 1995. Following his doctoral studies, he completed a postdoctoral fellowship at Stanford University. Beyond traditional neuroscience, he has studied brain and heart function during non-directive meditation. A practitioner of ACEM Meditation since 1978, Svend has been an instructor since 1981 and serves as an editor for ACEM's cultural periodical, where he writes on culture, science, and meditation. Regularly interviewed by Norwegian media on neuroscience and meditation, he is also an active voice in public discussions on drugs and brain health. Currently, he is in the process of launching a company focused on brain health management. And last but not least, we are excited to be joined by Alice Cameron. Alice learned ACEM meditation in 2013, and after several years as a moderator, then assistant instructor, she became an instructor in 2023. She holds a BSc in zoology and a medical master's in human nutrition. She spent 2 years as a VSO volunteer teaching secondary science in Malawi before joining the direct marketing team at Amnesty International. Alice stayed working in human rights for nearly 20 years. In 2017, she trained to become a primary school teacher and has been happily and busily doing that in London since then. So with those introductions here, and we see so many people are joining and getting connected. Thank you for all your responses in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Tony Nec.
Thanks, Gareth, and hello, everyone, and hello, Sven and Alice. Thank you very much. Sven and Alice are, I would say, are my friends and my guides in ACEM meditation. I've been training with them and being guided by them in meditation now for about 18 months since I started getting involved. So it's a real pleasure for me to be here today with you, and I'm really grateful that you're giving up your time and energy to be here doing this with us. So thank you. And so what I wanted to do was to just give you a short overview of my journey with ACEM meditation, and to give you a sense of what I found in this journey and the benefits I've had as well. And then I'll be handing it on to Alice. I can see you joined us now, Alice. Great to see you. Afterwards, and then I think Sven's going to continue on from there. So yeah, so my journey started with ACEM meditation about 18 months ago. It was in the summer of 2023 when I was doing research on, I was looking for natural methods for improving heart rate variability. Okay, so heart rate variability, or HRV for short, is an indicator. So is an indicator of our health and wellness. It's linked in with our autonomic nervous system, and a high heart rate variability is a good indicator of health and wellness. And so a lot of people, you know, we're struggling with our health and wellness. And so I was looking to see if there was an evidence base, if there are any research studies done to show how we could work with sound in relation to improving our heart rate variability. And I came across this article online referring to some research studies carried out by and with the ACEM form of meditation, a sound-based form of meditation. So I was really curious about that. And so I kind of dived into exploring that in more depth. And I was really pleased. I was pleased to see that, yes, the evidence base for improved heart rate variability was there. And in fact, there was evidence base from research studies done about other indicators of good health and wellness from people following ACEM meditation. So I was really pleased by that, because I know that there's a lot of people, including myself, around the world, who are looking for the science behind doing things. They're looking for this scientific evidence base. And ACEM is really grounded in this. It's grounded in the science. It's grounded in psychology. And so that was a really good thing. But yeah, I also know that there's a lot of people around, and probably a lot of our followers in the Sound Healing Academy would say that they are spiritual, but maybe not religious as such. And I was pleased to find that ACEM is not affiliated with any religious tradition or any kind of particular philosophical perspective either. So it's kind of non-aligned in that sense. And so that was really pleasing as well. But I was still curious about this more spiritual aspect. And so I was kind of diving around, exploring that some more depth. And I found on the website that there was a reference to this lovely book called The Psychology of Silence by the founder of ACEM, one of the founders, Ara Holland, who wrote this book many years ago now, but it's a wonderful book. And the last chapter in this is just a 2-page chapter, is called The Power of Silence. And hey, that's the title of this webinar, right? And so I was particularly intrigued by this. And what I thought I would do is to just read some sections, short passage from this book, just to give you a sense of what this is all about, because this really spoke to me, and hopefully it will speak to you as well. So the first part of what I'm going to read is quite evocative, and I've just copied this across onto the screen so I can just read it here. So it says, "Silence is a special experience, rich, vivid, deep. Many thoughts and emotions come alive. The quietness that rests over the lake at night, the crystal clear autumn morning with soft layers of frost on the grass and fallen leaves, the calmness reflected in a loving gaze, the motionless eye of a storm, the special peace in places where for ages the human heart has turned to the divine. In silence, the soul may whisper without words about the undone and unlived parts of existence." There's also part of the chapter that's a little bit more prosaic, but equally profound. So Ara says, meditation brings the mind closer to the inner power of silence, even if we are far from the silence of nature. A part of man's inner nature always rests in a core of this very same silence. Meditation brings us closer to this part of us. In the quiet stream of consciousness during the meditation, we are tacitly and often unnoticeably connected with what is untouched by time and history, happiness and suffering. In other words, the silent core of man's existential freedom. So after I read that, I felt something stir deep in my heart. And you could say it was a calling. I felt really called to explore this, to go on a real journey with ACEM meditation after reading that. So I quickly enrolled on a beginner's course, and hopefully some of you who are here today or watching the recording will want to do this. And I would really encourage this as the next step on from this webinar. So I joined a beginner's course with ACEM Meditation, and since then, for the past 18 months, I've been practicing the meditation, ACEM meditation daily, every day, usually, well, Alice and Sven are going to talk more about the whole method and the process. I'll leave that up to them. But from doing the beginner's course, I moved on to doing more advanced courses and eventually joined some retreats, as well as doing longer meditations that are guided in the process here. So it's been an incredible journey for me over these 18 months. And so this is kind of what I've learned, I would say. I just wanted to share this with you. Partly it's about the people and the organization and the methods and the approach. And then partly it's also about how I benefited from that, okay? So first things are that ACEM is non-profit. It's a charity as such. And all the instructors, everyone involved in doing this, does this voluntarily. So no one's making any personal profit, making money out of this. And that's an important thing because it means that the courses, the beginners courses, and also the more advanced courses and the retreats and everything can be offered at a really reasonable cost, quite a low cost, I would say. And it's tremendous value. And so that's a really important thing, I think. But even though it's a non-profit and people are doing it voluntarily, it's really high quality. It's really good professional standard here, and everyone's incredibly dedicated. And it's an organization that's been going for 60 years. And these are, when I went on the retreats and so on, I found that it's a fantastic group of people. I was welcomed in. It's very friendly and warm, and I've grown to trust the people and the organization, and that counts a lot. That counts for a lot, in my opinion. So I would say that, just to coin a phrase, and excuse the pun, but these are sound people, and it's a sound method, you could say. And the instructors have many years of experience. It's a very well-developed and well-structured training and development program, both for people who are new and getting into it and taking you through a whole process that actually is very in-depth and very profound. There are lots of different layers to the training. It's a very well-structured process, but it's also a very well-structured training and quite a long, in-depth training and development process for the instructors. And I would say that over these months and now nearly a year and a half, Alice and Sven have been my instructors. They've been my guides. I've had others as well, and and I'm very grateful for that experience I've had from them. So how have I benefited from this? Okay, well, I would say that generally I'm more calm, I'm more relaxed than I was before. I would say that it's enabled me to be more open and less kind of anxious. So there's less stress around. I'm more flexible in my thinking, in my behavior. And hopefully that's also benefiting people around me. There's less of a sense of conflict. There's less of a sense of having to do things in a certain way. And so it benefits me, but hopefully people around me as well. And that's an important thing, because ACEM isn't just about the personal, it's about how we interact in our daily lives with other people as well, the people around us, our friends and family, our work colleagues, and so on. So that's really good. So one of the things that I just wanted to share with you is that after about 6 months of learning ACEM, I went on this 3-day retreat at Amadown, which is a retreat center near Bath in the UK. And on the first morning of the retreat, meditation retreat, I just had this experience. It wasn't the goal of the meditation at this point. It wasn't an intended thing. It just happened spontaneously, I would say, and quite naturally. Is that my experience was that I dropped down deeply into this silence. that we're talking about here. And I experienced this, the timelessness, the timeless quality. You could say a peaceful, gentle energy that I experienced that as being essentially the essence of being. And it was a still, quiet place, you could say, something very deep and profound and very, very meaningful to me. And that has stayed with me. And there are moments when I have that. It's not something that I have as a goal or that I force, but it arises through this meditation process. And it plays out in different ways in my life. And what I wanted to do is just share one experience that I had just after I came out of that meditation retreat. A couple of weeks after that was an experience I had with my father, who at the time was 99 years old, grand old age. And he'd been living in a care home near me for about 7 years, living with dementia or Alzheimer's. It's quite a mild form of Alzheimer's, but more of a dementia that we were trying to manage as best we could. But yeah, about 10 days after coming back from the retreat, I was told that he'd stopped eating and drinking, basically, and the medics had said he's at the final stage of his life. And so I took up vigil beside him in his room there, not exactly 24 hours, but most of the time I was there. And every day I could see him withdrawing and his functions were diminishing. But it was a very rich experience for me. People came and went. I stayed there most of the time. And I was doing the ACEM meditation process regularly while I was there. And I just had this sense of, because my father was no longer talking, and we were there in silence, in this quiet silence, but the silence experience was deep. It was this deep kind of essence of being. And it felt like we were both sharing that in this moment at that time. And he actually carried on living for about 2 weeks, 14 days. It was a long period of time. His will to live was very strong, but eventually he let go, and I was there with him. And he passed over in this silence. And my experience was that we were there together in the silence, and silence existed both in life and in death in this sense. And if that's the essence of who we are, then I had a very profound experience with that. And I felt that it was the ACEM meditation in this process that enabled that very profound thing to happen. So that was really meaningful to me. And so what I wanted to do just to finish off was to say that I think that ACEM meditation is easy to learn. It's simple, but it's also very nuanced in relation, especially in relation to the way that we work with sound, the sound repetition of the sound in the meditation process. But also that this complements what we do with the outer sounds in our sound healing process. Okay, and I would say it's the two are a bit like a hand in glove. Okay, so you could say that the hand represents the inner sound, and the glove represents the outer sounds, the external sounds that we've got, right? And so the outer sounds, they prime the body and the brain, as I see it, as we work with sounds, particularly in the process of the integral sound healing method, that primes the body and the brain to receive the benefits of the inner sounds, right, of the ACEM meditation process. And the inner sounds, all right, they in turn, they enhance the healing the transformation, the change that is initiated by the outer sounds. But in fact, the two go together, right? They're separate and unique in one sense, they're differentiated, but they're actually together, inseparable, part of a whole. And to me, that's the beauty and the benefit of bringing these together today in this webinar. So with that, I'm just going to stop and say thank you very much for listening to me. And I believe that Alice is going to take over.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. And hello, everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit about the organisation and the technique before handing over to Svend to talk about the science behind it. And so I'm just going to share my screen with you. There. So the organisation was started in 1966 in Norway. And since then, more than 100,000 people have learned ACEM meditation. As Tony said, it operates on a not-for-profit basis and all its activities are delivered by volunteers. All of the meditators who've been through ACEM's extensive training program. Sorry. There we go. So ACEM's a non-directive meditation, meaning we're not trying to get somewhere, empty the mind or achieve any kind of state. Thoughts, sensations, and feelings are allowed to pass through the mind, and the meditator shouldn't resist becoming absorbed in them. No effort is devoted to excluding or actively observing what arises, and there's no attempt to move the mind toward or away from certain experiences or states. ACEM meditation is based on Western psychological theory about how unconscious factors influence human behavior and thought. And it has an existential psychological orientation, so as Tony said, without any links to religion. The organization's overarching goal is to stimulate personal growth through ACEM meditation, but also through a range of other activities, yoga, reflection and communication groups, and cultural activities. So now I'll show you the slide I intended to, which basically shows that ACEM's taught around the world, from the US right across to Taiwan and India through Europe. And we have retreat centers in several of those countries. Now let's talk about the technique. So the benefits of ACEM meditation stem from an interplay between what you do and what happens. And we'll look at each of these in turn. What you do deliberately is to repeat a meditation sound given to you on the beginner's course. This sound is a combination of syllables with no inherent meaning. ACEM has created its meditation sounds in the light of scientific study and centuries of meditative tradition. We repeat the sound mentally as effortlessly as we can, trying not to force it, and with our attention resting gently upon it. Our attitude is one of openness to anything that arises, letting thoughts come and go, not forcing anything. We have a free mental attitude. Repetition of the sound with free mental attitude elicits relaxation, calmness, freer mental resources, and activates deep, unresolved issues of the psyche. The other aspect of the technique is what happens spontaneously. So, given that repetition of the sound with free mental attitude, relaxation inevitably occurs, and that combination of the openness of a free mental attitude allows a host of thoughts, images and bodily sensations to arise. And they might seem random, but everything that comes up spontaneously during meditation represents something of you. And here we come to the interplay between what you do and what happens. Meeting whatever arises by continuing to repeat the sound in an effortless, inclusive, and accepting way can over time access resources for creativity, for processing unconscious conflict, and for inner calm, even silence. Regular meditation can eventually lead to greater freedom and flexibility in your private life, work, and studies. So, an ACEM meditation consists of 3 revolving phases, all natural parts of meditation. At the start of a meditation, the sound is usually easy to repeat at the center of the attention, alongside any thoughts, images, and bodily sensations which come and go. They tend to be mild and stay at the margins of your attention. If the sound is repeated gently, effortlessly, with openness towards whatever enters the mind spontaneously, then both mind and body relax. The mind moves towards deeper layers. And what arises spontaneously starts to take over the center of the attention, while the repeated sound moves to the periphery. The second stage, the second phase, starts when the sound is lost unknowingly, and more intense thoughts, images, bodily sensations, sleepiness, or other activities absorb the mind. We can't and shouldn't try to prevent this happening. It doesn't result from lack of self-discipline, but it's related to the non-directive quality of the practice. Spontaneous absorptions like this are regular, expected, important parts of ACEM meditation and essential for processing. They're when the unconscious gets a chance to discharge accumulated tensions from unresolved psychological issues and response patterns. Over time, this can lead to the processing of unconscious issues and their associated physical tensions. So this second phase underpins modification of our basic response patterns. After a while, the spontaneous absorption comes to an end. At this point, our primary task within ACEM meditation, is to restart the repetition of the meditation sound, gently, effortlessly, and unhurriedly, roughly as it was when we left it. It doesn't matter if we lose the sound again. Sometimes we lose it often, sometimes less so. As we've said, that's an integral and important part of meditation, which increases discharge from the unconscious. So in summary, all 3 phases, with sound, without sound, and back to the sound, are essential parts of ACEM meditation. The first phase processes mostly conscious material and is easy for us to understand. The second involves the unconscious, so it's an important part of the meditation. And both lead to deeper relaxation, stress release, increased energy, and personality development. So what happens then? Every time you meditate, repeating the sound with a free, open attitude, a relaxation response is elicited as a reflex in the central nervous system. Your pulse rate slows, your breathing slows, muscle tension eases. You'll also quickly feel the benefits of reduced stress, improved sleep, more energy, and a greater ability to focus when you need to. ACEM's potential for personal growth is realized over months and years of regular meditation, which allows processing of deeply rooted tensions. You may find yourself calm in situations which would previously have upset you, more aware of your tendency to react in certain ways, perhaps more self-confident, more trusting of your intuitions. Such changes may make our life easier and the lives of those around us. They bring us closer to realizing our potential and experiencing a greater sense of fulfillment. So we have a very simple technique. For ACEM meditation, all you need is a quiet, comfortable space to sit, dimmed light, a timer, and to have been taught your meditation sound and how to use it. Just sit normally, upright and comfortable, with back support so that your position isn't a distraction. You'll experience relaxation and a degree of stress reduction every time you meditate, even if you meditate for a few minutes sporadically. However, for best results and to realize the longer term potential of ACEM meditation, we recommend a daily routine of either 2 30-minute meditations or 1 45-minute meditation with occasional long meditations and guidance. So it's important to reiterate that ACEM meditation is not about achieving any state within a given meditation. Our life history has shaped us in several directions, for good and bad. Events in our early life may have marked us, leaving unresolved psychological tensions and leading to limiting patterns of behavior. Slowly and gently, with time, subtle changes we make toward more sensitive repetition of the sound and an open attitude within our inner meditative space will translate into changes to our personality and how we live our lives. They'll enable us to recognize and accept ourselves and so aid our recovery from the marks of our history. ACEM meditation facilitates interaction between the conscious and unconscious. That's our gentle repetition of the sound with a free mental attitude alongside what's activated from the deeper layers of the mind. If you meditate every day and very gently touch upon the traits that stress you, still repeating the sound as effortlessly as you can, you also lessen the impact of those traits in your everyday life. No two meditations are the same, and we'll experience different emotions, memories, and feelings every time. But by allowing ourselves time and space to be with them, we can bring ourselves closer to an anchoring silence within us, a moment of reconciliation with self and life, leaving us more grounded. We start to recognize that place of calm inside us, independent of whatever storms surround us in daily life. Surfacing tensions may affect the way we meditate without us fully seeing that we've altered our practice, moving away from a free mental attitude towards a more concentrated one. And guidance can be of essential help in this. And ACEM provides lots of opportunities for guidance to help us bring our meditation back in line with the basic technique. There are one-off and group guidance sessions, regular guidance sessions, or one-to-one. And of course, we have ACEM meditation retreats around the world where you're offered a daily diet of meditation, guidance, and yoga to optimize meditative, verbal, and bodily processing. So now I've told you about the basic technique, I'm going to stop the share. There. And Gareth will tell us if we have time for a few questions before handing over to Sven.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Alice. That's perfect timing because we just had a question come in. Let me go ahead and switch over to our gallery view so that we can have everybody see the panel here. So we had one question come in and we have time for probably about 3 questions now. So if anyone would like to submit a question, please do so using the question and answer function that you'll see at the bottom of your Zoom screen. That way we can track that and make sure we don't miss any questions. So the first question that comes in, and Alice, I'm going to go ahead and direct this one for you, is this individual said, I find that standing and gentle swaying is relaxing. Can ACEM meditation be done standing rather than sitting?
We would say that the basic technique suggests that we sit comfortably so that our position isn't a distraction. And swaying suggests something else that you're thinking about apart from the gentle repetition of your sound. So generally, I think I would say, no, let's sit in a chair or in our bed to practice ACEM.
Perfect. We've got time for 2 more questions, so I'm going to go ahead and read the 2 that are at the top of the list here. And actually, I think we can maybe combine a couple of these. So we are looking at, there's 2 questions here. So what are the sounds used in ACEM meditation, and can you give a demonstration of what one of those sounds might be?
I'm afraid I can't give a demonstration because we're given a sound when we do our beginner's course. That sound has been very carefully developed, and the idea is that once we've been given that sound, we only repeat it internally because it becomes very personal to us. We don't want it to be associated with anything outside our meditative space. And actually, after a while of meditating, you feel rather protective of your sound and you have a sort of a link with it and don't want to share it. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to give a demonstration.
Sure. And I do see there's a question that came in about upcoming training, and it looks like some of the courses might be booked up. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back to that at the end of the webinar to give you a little bit more information on how to get connected. There are some upcoming courses that are available. If it looks like it's booked, there is actually some space that's open for that. So we're going to have an email going out after this webinar that will have more information about how to get plugged into those events. And I'm going to go ahead and drop in the chat for everyone to see. There's going to be a couple links here that you can use as resources to find a training near you as well. And I'm going to go ahead and close the questions for right now. We do have a few more coming in, but we are going to have a full question and answer session at the end of this webinar. So if you have those questions, please be sure that you submit them using the question and answer function in Zoom, and we will do our best to get back to those and answer the questions that we have time for today. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Dr. Svend Davanger. So Svend, take it away.
Thank you very much, Gareth, and thanks also to Tony for inviting me to this webinar. It's a pleasure and an honor. So Alice and I have kind of a difficult task. We are trying to explain to you something that you have probably not any experience with. It's like if I should talk to you about riding a bicycle and you've never seen a bicycle before, never tried it, just explaining it with words is pretty tough. So, but I'll try my best, and then we can return to questions afterwards and discussions. And I will, both Alice and I will give courses in London personally, and I will, and also my colleagues and I will give online courses as well. Okay, I will share my screen. So I hope you can see this. Hold on. Yes. Okay, so what is meditation? There are a host of different definitions of it. This is one that has been developed by medical researchers. I find it's pretty good. So meditation, they say, is a specific technique. It's self-administered. It's something you do on your own. It involves muscle relaxation and mental relaxation, and you use a meditation object or an anchor as the center of your attention. So there are 3 main schools of meditation that attempt to cultivate attention. You can, the first one are the concentration meditations, concentration techniques, in where you try to exclude all other thoughts from your mind. This is very difficult and strenuous to do. Then there are mindfulness meditations, where you are kind of alert, watchful, and there are a spectrum of techniques from watchful to observing. Then there are non-directed meditations, where you integrate mind wandering kind of in as part of your meditation. And you use an inner sound, as we've mentioned. And by doing this, residues, psychological residues, are released. So to sum it up, concentration techniques are hard. Mindful techniques are more watchful but open. Non-directed techniques are more without much of a concentration or strenuous steering. So in concentration techniques and mindful techniques, this solution is preconceived. You have to either get rid of your random thoughts or empty your mind, or you have to accept them and then let go of them. While in non-directed techniques, those are more process-based, more open to change. There is no preconceived solution. As Alice alluded to, meditations may change from day to day, from time to time. So non-directive or non-directedness, what is that? So Alice mentioned a free mental attitude. That has got something to do with it. So non-directed is not being directed to a specific goal. There is nothing to achieve. There is a condition that facilitates psychological change and insight. It allows processing of unresolved residues. There is contact with the unconscious, and there is processing of the unconscious. So a meditation technique is non-directive to the extent that it facilitates the stimulus-independent, spontaneous activity of the mind. And this is reflected in an increased activity of the brain's default mode network, also known as the resting state network during meditation. I'll talk more about that later on. So there are three elements of deliberate mental activity in non-directed meditation. First, there is the free mental attitude. Then it should be, most non-directed techniques are sound-based, and that sound is non-semantic, meaning it has no semantic meaning. It's not a word. You can say it's a pseudo word, but it's without meaning, but still has profound effects. So with non-direct meditation, there is an interplay between the brainstem of the brain here and the cortex up here. So non-directed meditation combines two very active components. There is the inner sound and again, the free mental attitude. And together they create something rather remarkable, which we may call silence. To initiate this, we use our brain in combined regulated activity with several parts of the cortex, the hippocampus, and the brainstem. And the free mental attitude opens up for a quiet stream of thoughts that allows our mental residues to lose some of their attention. The opposite of the free mental attitude is concentration and stress. So concentration drains our energy, makes us tired, even exhausted. While arc meditation, on the other hand, may break this pattern and initiate bodily relaxation, a grounding of the self, and a gradual incremental process of psychological change. So the brainstem, here is the brain, and here's the bottom part is the brainstem. You see it in higher detail here. The brainstem is center for the vagus nerve, which some of you might have heard about. The vagus nerve is what initiates relaxation in our body. And The vagus nerve starts from the nucleus ambiguus, which is located inside here. So the nucleus ambiguus is involved with the mental generation of a meditation sound, and it is also the center for generation of bodily relaxation. Okay, so what happens when we meditate? First, we just sit down, close our eyes, and it's quiet. There is silence. Then we introduce the sound. We start repeating this inner sound in our mind, not out loud, but just thinking it. This will induce relaxation. Our bodies relax. Then you work with the sound with a free mental attitude. That's a way of doing something, but in a relaxed manner, non-effortful. When you repeat the sound with a free mental attitude, you will open up your mind for spontaneous thoughts, for wandering thoughts. This mind wandering during meditation will aid in the processing of psychological residues. And when you do that, you create inner freedom in your mind. And that inner freedom causes silence. So, back to concentration. We all kind of like meditation. No, it's like concentration. We like to be being able to concentrate, do good work, and not just wander about. Okay, so is it best with concentration or a free floating mind? Of course, when you have to solve a task, when you work, you're dependent on concentration. On the other hand, back to one of the great people from the UK, Charles Darwin. He talked about survival of the fittest. So why are we born with a mind that wanders if concentration is such a big thing? Maybe the fittest are people with a free-floating attention rather than narrow concentration. So Darwin also said that it is not the strongest of our species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. Okay, think about that for a moment. So back to concentration. Concentration, as you will probably have experienced, is a limited resource. It doesn't go on forever. Free mental attitude, on the other hand, is not limited. Why is that? So have you ever felt really exhausted and depleted of all energy after a day's work at the office? You probably have. When you think about it, isn't that a bit strange? After all you have been doing all day is sitting. So if concentration is such a big thing, why are our brains not better equipped to deal with it? So an American scientist, psychologist, Kaplan, he said somewhere that there is a similarity between the spontaneously flowing attention used when walking in nature and while meditating. So if you truly walked out in nature, your body might get tired, but your mind doesn't. So letting your eyes and attention wander freely, that does not require directed attention. It allows spontaneous reflection, and you may experience recovery from directed attention, fatigue, and stress. Okay, now I'm going to change places. Now we're down in East Africa, in the savannas of East Africa. And that's a vast space. Originally, it was populated by trees, big, mighty trees, like in a jungle. But then gradually, over thousands of years, grass began to take over, winning over the trees. The apes that had been living in those trees had to change their habits. So some of them started wandering about on the ground, on the savanna, not just climbing in the trees. And we gradually developed into humans. And when you wander about on the savannas in East Africa, your attention and your mind wanders. And maybe you see some distant trees. Maybe there are some fruits there. Maybe you hear the distant trickling of a stream of water. Maybe you see some other things that might be useful for you, or they might be dangerous. So you can't afford yourself the luxury of just focusing your attention on one thing. You would be lost. You would be the prey of predators. So from time to time, you may spend restricted periods concentrating on a task. If danger arises or you are attacked, focus all your attention on a single task, surviving. Okay? But when that is done, when you have succeeded in surviving, then you're back to letting your mind wander and your attention wander. So our survival has been crucially dependent on a continuous use of an effortless mode of attention for hours and hours, much more so than a continuous concentrated mode of attention. We are not designed, I'm sure Charles Darwin would agree on that, we are not designed to stay narrowly focused for long periods of time. In fact, doing so would, for most of our history, be dangerous, as it would make it difficult for our free-floating attention to pick up novel, threatening, or advantageous things in the distance. Okay, so the brain, we return to the brain now. The brain has three modes of attention, it appears. There are three large-scale brain networks. First, you have the central attention network, which you see here in blue in different projections of the human brain. This network is responsible for deliberate, active attention to present tasks, keeping necessary things in memory for the seconds needed to attend to the task. Like these guys here. The salience network, on the other hand, these yellow areas here, this network is allocated to the spontaneous redirection of attention to something that emerges here and now. So if you're dozing off, maybe, or just watching the TV or whatever, and your phone suddenly starts to ring, then your salience network brings your attention over to the phone. You need to attend to the phone. The third large-scale network, on the other hand, these red areas here, is called the default mode network. So it is responsible for spontaneous, self-related thoughts of past and future episodes. Such thoughts are often called mind-wandering, and this network is active when we do not have any external tasks to tend to. When you walk in nature, for instance, or maybe if you just stand waiting for the bus, and time drags on and you start thinking about everything and anything. So scientists, psychologists have started to study this default mode network and spontaneous mind wandering a lot. And they now say that all through the day, a steady stream of task unrelated spontaneous thoughts go on in your mind and in your brain. So mind wandering occupies somewhere between 40 and 50% of our waking time. And it increases greatly when we relax or rest. Mind wandering will also appear in our minds at seemingly random intervals, even when we're deeply occupied with a task. Normally, we would say that that's a disturbance. Okay, I'll return to that. So mind wandering competes for our attention with our top-down task-related thoughts. So the default mode network processes also stressful emotions. So mental fatigue and depletion of mental energy is closely linked to prolonged concentration and psychological stress, both ways. So could it be that the opposite of concentration, that is effortless, open attention, may reduce the impact of stressful emotions? So with an effortless attention, as when we practice our meditation, we introduce free mental attitude. And the free mental attitude opens up for spontaneous thoughts and mind wandering, generated by neuronal activity in the brain's default mode network. And may the default mode network be directly involved with processing or regulation of emotions, difficult emotions. So George Northoff of the University of Ottawa, he conducted an experiment called the wooden chairs experiment. So they had a trained actor or actress read aloud sentences that were very neutral, like, "The chairs are made of wood." But they were instructed to read that sentence in different with different combinations of emotion. So they could read that sentence in a sad way, or a happy way, an angry way, and so on. So the words were exactly the same, but the emotions behind that sentence were different. And then they traced or scored how adept the subjects were in categorizing or grading that emotion correctly. And they found that the higher the subject scored on being able to identify the correct emotion, that was linked to a higher activity in the default mode network. So the default mode network, or activity in the default mode network, allowed them or aid them to become better at identifying emotions in others, something we might call empathy. So another group of people at Harvard University, Killingsworth and Gilbert, they developed an app where you could sign on to that app and use it. And every now and then throughout the day, it would make a little sound, and you had to answer some questions about what you were doing and what you were thinking about and what your emotions were. And they found out that mind wandering was occupying your mind in 47% of your waking time. That's quite a lot. It was involved with emotions almost 70% of the time we spend mind wandering. And pleasant topics occupied 42.5% of the instances, unpleasant topics 26.5%, and neutral topics 31%. So we spend a lot of time mind wandering, and mind wandering is coupled to emotions as well. So going back to concentration. Concentration is limited and it's stressing. We can't concentrate for a long time without becoming exhausted. In the long run, while engaging in demanding tasks, we lose much of our ability to concentrate and need to refuel something we can call mental energy. So concentrating continuously for a long time is often stressful in itself, but also the other way around. Stress often makes you concentrate, thus causing you to lose more energy. On the other hand, open, free, non-directed attention is linked to the default mode network and relieves stress. Although the default mode network is known to be responsible for mind wandering, it is also involved with the processing of emotions and stress, as we've seen. So mind wandering with a free mental attitude gives a discharge of emotionally loaded cognitive residues. You become more finished with them. In other words, non-directed attention, as in ACEM meditation, seems to be one of the tools we need to refuel mental energy after periods of prolonged concentration and stress. So I was involved with a scientific study where we scanned the brains of people during ACEM meditation. This was published in the journal Frontiers in Human Neuroscience. And we showed that non-directed meditation may activate the default mode network more strongly than just simple resting. So you could say that ACEM meditation is a way of stimulating the default mode network in a way that gives you more rest than just resting. So back to this default mode network, it's stimulus within this network. The activity here generates stimulus independent thoughts, meaning that there are thoughts that are not related to anything just present, a task at hand right now. Often these thoughts are autobiographical, they're about you. You time travel in a way, it's not about here and now. It's present in all types of meditation, really, but it's specifically activated in non-directed meditation techniques. So, to start to sum things up, the brain has allocated large parts of the cortex to processing spontaneous thought. That is the default mode network. These thoughts come intermittently all through the day, less often while we're engaged in demanding tasks, but more often while we're performing routine tasks or simply resting. And even more so when meditating. They seem to have important functions in processing memories, some of them of an emotional nature to assist us when making good choices for our future. Non-directed meditation may harness this brain processing activity, leading to decreased stress levels and to increased understanding of our relationships with others and our own lives. So, free mind wandering during meditation is not a disturbance in ACEM meditation. It is a resource. So this has been discussed by several scientists through the years. So defocused attention may assist in identifying alternative strategies for achieving relevant goals and also increase our memory for items in the periphery of our attention. Random episodic memory has also for many years been the working tool in psychoanalysis. And cognitive disengagement, allowing your mind not to be concentrated on a specific task, is an adaptive measure to mentally redirect attention from plans or strategies that don't lead in the right direction. Okay, this is my last slide for today. So non-directed meditation combines two very active components, as we've discussed. The inner sound with the free mental attitude. So the inner sound activates the vagus nerve and leads to bodily relaxation, while the free mental attitude activates the default mode network, leads to an increase in spontaneous thoughts and processing of residues, leading to inner calm. Together, these two things may stimulate or increase what we may call silence. That is what I would like to talk to you about today. And maybe we should open up for some questions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Svend. We have quite a few questions that have come in, so we will do our best to answer all of the questions that we can today. I'm dropping a link in the chat for everyone to see right now. This is a link to ACEM's blog, and this is a great resource to do some more research and find out a little bit more information. So the first question that we have is ACEM an acronym, and what does ACEM stand for?
Alice, would you like to answer that?
I think
You
you're
have to unmute yourself.
There we
there
go.
you go.
There. No, it's not an acronym. It's a term that was devised, I think, fairly shortly after the beginning of the organization. Really, partly with a view to being quite high up the list, the alphabetic list. Am I right, Sven?
Yes. And we did get a question previously about examples of meditation sounds. And actually, the word ACEM could have been used as such a sound. So it has some of those qualities that we like to use when we meditate with a sound.
Perfect. And our next question is the sound used in ACEM meditation unique to each person?
I'll go in for answering that one at the beginning, Sven. So some people are given an individual sound when they start, but a lot of people who learn within a group will initially be given a group sound, and that sound can last them forever. But if after 6 months or so of regular meditation, they can get an enhanced sound, or an individual sound. Sorry, they can get an individual sound, and then after a couple of years with that, they can then get an enhanced sound. And the idea of those enhanced sounds is to provoke more spontaneous thought to arise, and to sort of difficulties within the meditation, which are the wonderful challenges which develop us or provide those challenges.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Alice. We've got a few more questions here, and Svend, perhaps you can answer this next one. What are the differences between ACEM meditation and mindfulness?
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit in the beginning. So, so as I alluded to, there is a spectrum of meditation techniques depending on the degree of concentration you use in your attention towards the meditation object. And of course, the concentration techniques, they are strong on concentration, but weak on a free mental attitude. So ACEM meditation, on the other hand, is very open, very accepting, very free. You allow, you permit whatever thoughts that come, and there is no idea of that you have to limit or those spontaneous thoughts. Whatever arises, you accept. Mindfulness meditation, you could say, is somewhere in between. So there is an acceptance of thoughts arising, but when you have noted or identified such a thought, your task is to gently let go of it. Okay? So you accept it coming, but then the time has come to let go of it. In ACEM meditation, you will just accept this thought for as long as it wants to be there, and then repeat the sound with a free mental attitude alongside the thought, or maybe you even forget to repeat the sound, and then you're absorbed in the thought for a while, and then you remember the sound again, and you return, as Alice told us about.
Perfect. Thank you so much for answering that, Svend. We have 3 more questions that have come in, and it looks like we have a couple more that are coming in as well. So we'll do our best to get to the questions that are there. Kind of combining a couple of questions that we have in the chat here and in the questions is there a similarity between non-directed sound-based meditation and sensory deprivation? And also, is there a difference between ACEM meditation and transcendental meditation?
I can answer the first one. So sensory deprivation. Yeah, no, not really. I mean, when you meditate, and that is not specific to ACEM meditation, you want to sit somewhere quietly, maybe a bit dark, and not too many sounds, maybe completely quiet around you. Sit quietly, not using a lot of thought or energy to maintaining your posture and things like that. So you, in that regard, you have a kind of sensory deprivation. But you are, let me put it this way, you are very open to your, let's say, inner senses. So you're not trying actively to get rid of anything. And the other question that was about TM. How about you, Alice? Would you say something about that?
Well, my understanding, I should say at this stage that my knowledge lies with ACEM rather than TM. I've never been a practitioner of TM, but my understanding is that ACEM places a greater store really on using guidance as a means of working, recognizing when you've become slightly derailed from the basic technique, or working through issues that arise for you within your meditation, or things that are revealed to you by your meditation. So that's my understanding of one of the, I think that's one of the obvious differences. Svend, do you want to add anything to that?
I can say a little bit. So transcendental meditation is also a type of non-directive meditation. And it is also based on the thinking or generation of the meditation sound. They use what they call mantras, which are mostly words from Sanskrit having some kind of religious meaning in Sanskrit. So you might not know about that, but the sounds, the meditation sounds in ACEM are completely without any meaning whatsoever. Also, so there are some slight religious links with transcendental meditation that is not there with ACEM meditation. And also in ACEM meditation, there is a greater, so Alice mentioned guidance. So during guidance and groups in ACEM meditation, there is kind of an understanding that some of the issues that come up and might sometimes disturb your meditation have their roots in the unconscious. So there is, dealing with unconscious issues is more of an integrated aspect of ACEM meditation.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We have a couple more questions here, and I think we probably have time for 3 more questions today. So we'll do our best to get through what we have here on the list. The first question of the 3 that are left is, does ACEM offer guided meditations online?
Online, what we offer, we have long meditations and opportunities to meet, go away, have your own meditation, and then come back and discuss it as part of a guidance group. We don't really do guided meditation as such. That would be my answer to it.
Yes, true, and also because guiding you through a meditation that would kind of interfere with the free mental attitude and the opening of the mind.
Perfect. Thank you for that. So 2 more questions for you. And for the last question, I'm going to do my best to combine a few that we have here to try and get some answers for people. Again, there is a link to the ACEM blog that is in the chat here, and I will just repost that again for anyone that does not have time to have their question answered today. That's a great place to look. So the first of the last 2 remaining questions would be, if you were taking medications to help you concentrate, would this affect your ability to practice ACEM meditation?
It might. I mean, when we sit down to meditate, we try to be somewhere where there are not a lot of disturbances. And of course, you might also have chemical disturbances. So you wouldn't like to meditate if you're very drunk, for instance. That would be completely not good for your meditation. Some types of medications may also have an influence. On the other hand, if they are medications that you need to take because of your medical condition, then do that and then make the best out of it while you meditate. I mean, they won't destroy your meditation, but may have some impact. But you're usually able to combine them.
Wonderful. And for our last question today, Alice, I'm going to start with you, and then Svend, if you have thoughts on this too, I'd love to see what you have to say. And we have quite a few people are interested in how are the actual sounds for ACEM meditation created? What is the process that goes into creating those sounds that people typically share during that experience?
So there are some sounds which have been sort of shown through scientific studies to have either a harmonizing effect, a sort of calming effect, and other sounds which have been shown to be slightly more provocative, and it's a combination of those. And there's also, there are centuries of meditative tradition to draw aspects of those sounds from. That's what I would say, Sven. And would you like to build on that?
Yes. So sounds, I mean, that's why you all are here, I guess. Sounds have an effect on us. We all know that. So if you hear the sound of the trickling sound of a mountain stream, that's one type of sound. If you hear a construction engine in the city, that's another type of sound. We know they will affect us differently. And even if you hear a poem being recited in a completely different language, be it Chinese or Greek or Hausa or whatever, you can see that different poems with different sounds may affect you differently. Okay, so there are aspects of sounds and also language-like sounds that will have an effect on you. And some may be more gentle or soothing, some may be more harsh. And I think for the sounds that we use, the emphasis would be on maybe not soothing, but gentle sounds that are easy to repeat, easy to think, but as Alice said, a little bit of an edge to them as well, so that they are not just pure meditative music. I mean, you will relax, and that's it. But there should be something that triggers something inside you. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much for answering that question. And we are going to begin to wrap up today's webinar. But once again, we are just so thankful to be partnering with ACEM Meditation for today's webinar. Dr. Svend Davanger, Alice Cameron, thank you so much for your presentations and for joining us today. Tony, before we close, I'm going to turn things back over to you. And one last question that we had come in is looking at, there's a lot of people here from the Sound Healing Academy. What is it about ACEM meditation that blends with sound healing, where this is something that our students can really benefit from? And maybe what are some good next steps that people can take to learn more?
You have to unmute yourself, Tony.
Thank you. I need to unmute. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the questions. And yeah, I mean, the first thing I would say is jump in, join a beginner's course. That's the way you really learn. That's the way you get this meditation sound with ACEM. And like I said at the beginning, and Alice said, everyone who's doing this from ACEM is doing it voluntarily, which means that the cost is really quite low. It's very, very good value, and it's very accessible. This is a very accessible form of meditation. Anybody can do this. It's easy to learn, and if I think Gareth is just popping in the links there to the UK and the North American sites. I think if you go on those links, you'll be able to see that there are beginners courses available both online and also in person in London, in the UK as well. So really jump on it. Like I said at the beginning, all right, in my talk, it's like hand in glove. Okay, you got the outer sounds, the external audible sounds that we create. And yes, part of our whole integral method is that there are these harmonious sounds, and then there's also the dissonant sounds, the intervals that we talk about there in music. And often in a sound bath or a one-on-one session we would major on the more calming, harmonious sounds, but we would also be introducing some dissonant sounds as well, because we want to be triggering things. We don't want to just be completely relaxed. We want to actually trigger something that is going to have a healing, a beneficial effect. And so it's the same. It's like the inner sounds work of ACEM meditation is just so complementary to that. It's like the hand in glove. The two go together. I just experience it myself. So one of the other things that I just wanted to say, which is not really part of the ACEM thing, but is just been part of my approach, is that you can use a tuning fork. The good thing about tuning forks is that they don't make a lot of noise as such. So again, with ACEM meditation, you don't actually need anything. You don't need to spend your money on anything to do this, right? And really, it's about being quiet, and you're not then interfering with anybody around you, like in your house or anything like that. And so it's a very non-invasive form of meditation in terms of the space around you. It's a bit like that with tuning forks, as I see it. They're quiet, they're non-invasive in terms of the audible sounds that are created. But if you have a C and a G tuning fork set, you have a perfect fifth there, which is a very harmonious sound. It's a very calming sound. And so sometimes, not always, but sometimes if I'm feeling really quite agitated or upset or something, then I play both these tuning forks, put them to my ears like this before I do the ACEM sound meditation, and do that a few times. And that's just, okay, so I'm starting to drop out of that busy, kind of anxious, worried, stressful state. And it really does, like I was saying earlier with the glove and the hand thing, the external sounds are like the glove. They prime the brain, they prime the body to then enter into the ACEM meditation in a whole fresh, way that is very conducive to that. And then the ACEM sound meditation further enhances that relaxation, the mind wandering, the dropping down into the depths of the silence, and so on, the processing of the psychological residues that are there. That's how they go together as I see it.
That's wonderful. And as we come to a close today, thank you all again for joining us. Thank you so much to our panelists for your wonderful time today in explaining everything about ACEM meditation. I would encourage everyone, if you're not familiar with it, if you want to get plugged in, if you want to jump right in and take a beginner course, please do that. We also are going to have some more exciting webinars coming up through the Sound Healing Academy, so be sure to stay tuned for that. But with that, thank you all so much for joining. Thank you, everyone.